Bienvenidos amigos. I'm going to try to keep this concise as possible, which means 30 minutes to half an hour plus, maybe potentially even up to 3 hours of content, because concision is not my forte. Pero no mucho, un poquito, conversación. Look, I've had a couple drinks, maybe a couple Mai Tais. It was a warm afternoon. Trying to lighten up here and wrangle this deer. You know what I mean? It's just not clear what I'm trying to do here. It disappeared. There it is. Anyways, this is the what is it called? The roles update. Fuck. The roles update for Red Dead Redemption, and it has added a lot more content. In case anyone was curious, you can now be a bounty hunter, which is the most straightforward. You hunt bounties. You know, a manhunter, man killer, if you will. You can be. You can take them alive, though. It's more lucrative to do so. And my online character is currently high honor, so that is the case. We're gonna have to fucking take this son of a bitch out. Alright, I didn't want to do it like that, but them's the breaks, dog. Okay, so you have the bounty hunter, the trader, and the collector. The bounty hunter is bounty hunting, as obvious as it sounds. The trader is more or less hunting skins and pelts and carcasses and meat, and then you can bring them to your camp, and your hombre crips bushes them up, and then you take them to locations across the map in order to sell them. It's honestly not any different than regular butchering that has been going on in Red Dead Redemption Online since launch, except for you can get your own wagon to sell things, larger wagons, smaller wagons, etc. My camp is not currently set up. That is what you're seeing on the map, is a lack of camp, so I'm going to go ahead and set that up. And then the third role is the collector, and the collector is essentially going around the map and you are gathering items of value that need to be searched for. Now, the ones that I have found thus far are simply special cards in homes that you essentially break into, but there's also a lot more to that. There's, you know, hidden treasure and things like that. You can dig up stuff. I'm actually gonna put the camp in Roanoke Ridge and try to go for a little change of scenery. I believe that we are in New Hanover right now by Valentine. We're actually more of in Lemoyne, so we're not too far. I was rocking around the Cumberland Forest for a while, and we're gonna go over here somewhere. Actually, over here. But this also adds the Outlaw Pass, I believe it's called. And so if you purchase the Outlaw Pass, you can unlock a lot more outfits and upgrades like that. You know, they have outfits, emotes, gun customization options that are unique to that as well. And you don't necessarily have to pay for it, but you more or less do, unless you were stockpiling your premium currency just for this event, which people with more time than I have certainly were, but that is not the case. So what is going on with me right now is for PlayStation Plus members, the trading role has been unlocked automatically. Otherwise, I would have went right for the bounty hunting role, but I don't have enough gold bars to purchase any of the roles, so I'm going for the trading role at the moment, only in order to pad my wallet, as it were. And so, you know, when you see an animal, you take him out. But I've been having difficulty keeping my stockpile of meats and pelts up enough to have continuous flow of goods. Now what you can do is get more animals, right? So on your horse you can pretty much store let's see, like 1 or 2 small pelts, a full animal carcass, and then a handful, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of what I'm picking up right now, which would be considered like a small carcass. And definitely for sure, if you're going out just for hunting, that is what you want to be collecting, is as much as possible, which go figure. But even then, the preference would be to have maybe even a partner and a okay, so look, so you can have 2 small animals, 1 large animal, and then a pelt underneath a large animal, maybe even 2 pelts underneath a large animal. But that's about the extent that you can have on 1 horse. So what you want to do is have a wagon, and you can carry more full-size carcasses back to your camp. But I don't have time for that, so who cares? Not me. So anyways, I don't know if I had mentioned previously, but you know, I drank some Mai Tais today. I'm feeling pretty loose. It was a hot one up here in northern Ohio. It felt like the middle of July to me. It was very humid, and I was helping my cousin move. It was a great experience. We were very productive, and I appreciate the invitation. But beyond that, I was tired, so I rinsed off in the shower, and I was like, man, I want something refreshing, so I hit up the bar, and I have a couple fancy fruity drinks. You know, normally I go for just straight beer, which is also cool. Aw, man, here's my dog Geronimo, Chesapeake Bay Retriever. Tell you what, man, dogs are super cool. He's my buddy. So I'll show you right now. You can go over here. This is clearly a butchering table. And I'm going to deposit my carcasses. So essentially, you fill the materials up, and then make sure that your production equipment is supplied, and then your goods will slowly be processed. And as they are processed, the wagon capacity will fill up, and once the delivery amount reaches the wagon capacity, I don't want to rush you, but then you can sell. And I think my max right now at the smallest, very initial buy-in wagon size is about $65, which right now is honestly not that worth it, but I do believe it would be once I get a larger wagon. I believe right now it is more lucrative for me just to do either stranger missions, or the even more profitable route would just be playing multiplayer matches, but I'm not a super huge fan of doing that. I sort of like to just roam around the map solo. I do enjoy the stranger missions more than anything. I think I would prefer them add more of that content where you can just sort of go in and do something that's convenient and repeatable but interesting and the gameplay is there. Um, which is why I would like to buy into the bounty hunter role. Because I think that that will fill that slot for me, at least in some capacity. But we'll see. I honestly don't play enough to sort of
Seems that the last thing worked out
be
all right.
competitive.
You know, my pa
Or
told me this job would be a great way to meet people. Meet people. I hate people. They're idiots. And talking of idiots, apparently the folks at the Emerald Ranch need someone to escort a wagon down the roads. So there you go. I guess I just earned my measly commission. You here for work, Dan?
just gonna let Angus there speak for a moment. But yeah, so I think that the bounty hunting could be really fun for me as someone who isn't super keen on the competitive scene of this game, but really enjoys the stranger missions. It might be fun to have sort of a more repetitive combat scenario, PvE type mission that is repeatable for me. So that's pretty cool. But like I said, I'm stuck, so to speak, in the trader role at the moment. Now, obviously, you can pay for the premium currency, hence premium. But your boy is broke as a joke, and I've been really not strapped for cash. You know what I mean? You know, I work hard and I sustain myself, but you have to be wise with the payments that you have, and as much as I could drop 10 bucks or whatever it is just to buy this one roll for the bounty hunting, you know, you're essentially cheating yourself out of content, because I can work through this, you know, and as I believe that they're probably going to add some sort of content throughout the winter, but I don't imagine seeing a large content drop like this for the majority of about 10 months or so, almost a year. So you can be pretty safe going throughout the winter, just working your way into the different roles. Or if you had saved up, you can certainly just buy them outright. And I know a lot of people have done that. I haven't had the time to grind out my gold, and when I did, I spent it on stupid things like hair and horses. But I digress. Or you can pay for it outright, which is cool, you know. So microtransactions get a lot of flack that is very justifiable in my eyes. I see them as sort of a shortcoming in the contemporary gaming marketplace where people lack ingenuity and inventive creative ideas that are pushing the medium forward in place of essentially creating a marketplace for skins, you know, which legitimately sometimes can be cool, but you're also sort of, it's sort of like a lowest common denominator type market, or rather a race to the bottom in my eyes, not unlike an App Store situation when the App Store first released. More of like, if you imagine like 2007 App Store games, it was all microtransaction laden and copycat sort of designs, and it's not really progressing what I think video games can be. which isn't necessarily a problem because you need to make money in order to spend money on these grandiose AAA productions, and I understand the market in that capacity, and a game like Red Dead Redemption 2's single player, which I think is a beautiful, dramatic piece of art, really, that wouldn't be possible without all the sort of shadier interactions commercially that they have in Grand Theft Auto 5's online component. So to that end, with Red Dead Redemption Online, though, I think that it would be cool to support the game development in this particular case of microtransactions. I think that this content could be worth paying for in the capacity of maybe one role, you know, like float these guys 10, 15, 20 bucks, you know? Is this worth 20 bucks to you? You know, because if you think about it, if this is the only game you're going to play throughout the winter or so, then that'd be worth, you know, 20 bucks to me. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword, because if this was legitimately the only game you were going to play through the winter, then you might as well just work through the content diegetically. And if not, if you were going to buy other games throughout this entire winter, then, you know, like let's say you're buying Call of Duty, that's 60 bucks. You know, if you pay 20 more bucks on microtransactions for Red Dead Redemption Online, it's 80 bucks. You're already almost to $100 on games for the winter, you know what I mean? And if you're buying two games, literally only 2 video games, brand new. Oh shit. Wasn't supposed to do that. We'll see if they freak out. We'll call the cops. But if you're purchasing 2 video games throughout the winter, that's $120 plus tax, so $170 plus $20 of microtransactions on Red Dead Redemption Online is $190. You know, and I'm not trying to invade your privacy about your finances, but you can imagine that it adds up fairly quickly. I'm looking at Modern Warfare right now. I'm looking but waiting for reviews on Star Wars's Jedi Fallen Order. I think that has potential to be good. From what I've seen so far, it looks okay. An 8 at most if we were going on a 10 or 20 point scale, in my opinion, based on only the gameplay demo given at, what was that, EA Play, I believe. Beyond that, Death Stranding is a complete unknown quantity because you have such a prestigious name attached to it, and it's certainly going to be thought-provoking at the least. You know, I believe that after Metal Gear Solid 5, Hideo Kojima would like to say a little bit more, and so I think that we're going to get more of the cinematic, story-focused, dialogue-intensive, you know, what's the word? Like, fully explained worlds version, you know, exposition-heavy version of a Hideo Kojima game. But gameplay-wise, for Death Stranding, we haven't seen a lot yet that indicates that it's gonna be very involved, for a lack of a better word. And so that's another one where I'm kind of hesitant to pre-order or purchase outright. I am a little bit more inclined to wait for reviews before I do anything like that. So those are the 3 games that I'm looking at right now: Modern Warfare, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Death Stranding. And there's a couple other good ones on the horizon. I think that you know, this year, you know, essentially the fall, there's a couple good titles coming out and things like that, but I'm not particularly interested in any. Now, the beginning of the year 2020 is actually front-loaded with a handful of titles that do interest me, particularly Watch Dogs Legion. Now, I believe, in a small camp of someone who enjoyed the first one and was not particularly fond
Did you need something else?
of the
You heard about
sequel.
Valentine Road? Been having all kinds of trouble sending wagons over
The
there.
biggest thing for
Most of the
me
regular drivers are
was,
refusing to take that route.
for Watch
But then
Dogs
their pay is
2,
fixed.
I was playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto Online at the time, and so going back and forth between those two, the driving in Grand Theft Auto was so comfortable, and then the driving in Watch Dogs 2 was legitimately painstaking, almost laughable. You know, as much as I enjoy the large Ubisoft open world semi-RPG sort of games, Ghost Recon Wildlands is a strong example for me where I love the game, but the driving is so necessary and time-consuming, but it actually is such a hindrance because it sucks, dude. You know, I don't know. It's the same thing with horses in a game like Red Dead Redemption 1 or 2 versus games like Assassin's Creed. If you go back to Red Dead Redemption 1, the contemporary Assassin's Creed games were like what? Assassin's Creed 3 and 4? Maybe not even. And if you are controlling a horse in Red Dead Redemption 1, it feels fluid and natural and comfortable and looks cool. And that's really important when you spend a lot of fucking time on your goddamn horse. And then you go to Assassin's Creed and you're like, look, the parkour and the movement controls in that aspect, well, regardless, the Assassin's Creed movement controls are never super tight, but it's fun, right? It's fun to be a dude jumping around on boxes. But the horse controls, you feel like a guy in an inner tube floating down a river, and it's not a productive feeling to play that game on a horse. So, in Ubisoft games, if you're playing Ghost Recon Wildlands and the stealth is cool, the shooting is cool, the customization is cool, but you're spending all this time driving to and fro, and the driving sucks, or in the case of Watch Dogs 2, I was legitimately put off of Watch Dogs 2 only because the driving. You know, I think that his little yo-yo thing was weird, so whatever. But in March of 2020, you have Watch Dogs Legion, and driving aside, it does look like a step up legitimately. The fact that they allow you to play as NPCs is a really fun hook for me, because essentially it's incorporating something that's not necessarily unheard of, but playing as NPCs in the campaign of the video game, that's cool. You know, that's interesting because as someone that likes to customize the character, maybe you take the customization out, but now you can play as any sort of type of person that you want. And, you know, I guess that's good enough for me. But, you see people, I don't fucking know. Fuck, I fucking crashed. But anyways, you see Watch Dogs Legion taking a step up, taking a step forward, trying something different. It's not unheard of to play as NPCs. The biggest thing that I can think of would be Grand Theft Auto 5 Director's Mode, because in that game, or in that mode, you are playing as NPCs, you know, and I don't know if I'm an outlier, but I legitimately enjoy playing as miscellaneous gang members, or characters from the story mode that you didn't get to play as, or pedestrians, and so to put that into the narrative and into the story as a part of this sort of like hacker subculture gang sort of group, and you can play as gang members or spies or old ladies or everything else that they've advertised. It's really sort of up my alley because honestly the protagonists of the original Watch Dogs and the sequel were just sort of there. They were sufficient as sort of a conduit or an avatar for whatever you were doing as the player. But they weren't really interesting in the same way that an Arthur Morgan was, or a Nico Bellic was, or even all the characters in GTA 5. And it's kind of hard to compare Rockstar North games to, let's see, I don't know who develops Watch Dogs. Let me look it up real quick. But, yeah, dude, comparing Rockstar North games to any other game, but especially something like a Watch Dogs, which is essentially, ostensibly, competing directly with that, I mean, you just can't hold a candle. Okay, so it's Ubisoft Montreal, which is what I thought. But so you have Ubisoft Montreal, which is just one arm, a rather large arm, but one arm of all of the Ubisoft studios, going up against literally all of Rockstar for Red Dead Redemption 2. And no, you're not going to get as talented of voice actors, you're not going to get as natural of dialogue, you're not going to get a strongly written narrative in that capacity. So apples to oranges, it's not good, but video game protagonists as a whole, I think that taking the protagonist out of the story, quote unquote, so to speak, by having it be anyone is actually the right move. Because now the main voice cast will be more of your... What the fuck? What's over there? Will be more of your handler or the sort of oversight character in this Watch Dogs game, and I think that that is the right move for that franchise, you know, because Watch Dogs is interesting and provocative, and they sort of have a little social commentary, Big Brother kind of thing going on, and there's a lot to say in that world, and London's always interesting. So I really have a lot of high hopes for Watch Dogs Legion. Beyond that, I am actually very, very interested in the Final Fantasy VII remake. As someone who has never played Final Fantasy VII, because I was never really into turn-based RPGs when I was younger, just because shooters and platformers were more interesting at the time. You know, you get to play a game and actually play. It's not this, you know, sort of thought-provoking, plotting, narrative-heavy thing, you know, whereas nowadays I actually almost prefer that, and I've actually started to play through Final Fantasy VI, the Super Nintendo game, which is nothing but all of that. But seeing them transition from the actual Final Fantasy VII turn-based combat with the heavily polygonized characters into beautiful contemporary graphics engines and action-based combat, not unlike a Devil May Cry or something like that, with large, grandiose special moves, with, you know, lots of special effects and visual effects and things like that. That's right up my alley, unfortunately. I mean, it almost feels like a shortcoming as a gamer to say that you can't appreciate turn-based games, but the fact is that I would much rather play as a dude that can beat the shit out of other dudes than a dude that has to wait to hit a dude one single time and then it pops a number on the screen. And that's coming from a fan of Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 and all that. Speaking of Star Wars, though, next Tuesday, so in a handful of days here, they are re-releasing Star Wars Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast on the PlayStation 4. And this will be the first time that the video game is on a PlayStation console, which is interesting, but I'm totally going to purchase that game, play it through, probably make a video about it. I will totally evangelize the PlayStation port of that game to my utmost capabilities, even in the workplace. I don't give a shit about it. But to play that game on a controller for the first time, now it was on the original Xbox, so this is not the first time that it's been on a controller with this quantity of buttons or a similar layout. But it will be the first time that I have ever played it on a controller, and I myself personally am a controller-oriented gamer. Even if I had a PC that could play contemporary games, I would still probably use a controller, except for maybe if I was playing something competitive. But you know, if I would play something like the new Call of Duty on PlayStation anyways, more than likely, just because of that fact. Controllers are way more comfortable and natural to me, and it's not like every game ever uses every single key on a keyboard anyways, so what's the big deal to me? Now we get the mouse argument, but you know what? Whatever, I don't need pixel perfect accuracy, that's just me.
Now, how's about a spot
And
of
so they're
pearls,
actually
huh?
also going
There's a
to
boat.
release
The getting
Jedi
out would
Knight
be real
3,
lucrative for us. They're
quote unquote,
smugglers, see? So they won't
Jedi
report it.
Academy.
Just get it from up around Bard's Crossing and bring it around to dock. We'll take care of the rest. Okay then, get along. They might be smugglers, okay, but that don't mean you should kill them. You hear me?
Oh man, we're gonna try and fist fight these mofos. Yeah, so early 2020 is all that's been said, but they're gonna re-release Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, and so more or less, typically all of these re-releases, remasters, HD remakes of these video games have been, you know, it's, at least historically, legacy terms here, been a barometer for a new entry. Now, obviously, EA has more or less the corner on Star Wars games for now, although I believe that their contract is out in a couple of years here. So they're not going to make a Jedi Knight 4, they're not going to make a KOTOR 3. I don't think that that's on the horizon, but I can imagine that if these re-releases sell well, they might be more inclined to move their efforts into a more single-player routed sort of Jedi-focused story, unique story, as opposed to a movie story aspect, you know, designed for their next game. But I mean, there's a lot of factors for things like that, because you have the Respawn Entertainment game coming out in November and things like that. Holy shit. Yeah, so that's pretty much the update on my gaming thoughts currently. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Holy shit, my fucking face is getting beaten in.
I'll cure your cavities, boy.
Let's see what's in that head of yours.
Oh man.
We got your rim right. No way.
Parcel for
I'll thrash you good.
Oh man.
You're done. Tris. So try again.
They're getting me, man. Oh, dude has a knife? What is that? Alright, that was pretty intense, not gonna lie. So those are my gaming thoughts as of the end of September. I will definitely come out with a video of me playing fucking Jedi Outcast next week. So follow my pursuits and endeavors into the future. I invite your companionship into my life. Thank you. Have a good evening. Adios, amigos.